Could the Detroit Pistons acquire a stretch big this offseason? A recent report from Marc Stein seems to suggest that is a possibility. We'll break down what that means in today's episode, Locked On Pistons Podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Ku Khahil. You can find me over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. I also want to thank you guys for supporting me and the podcast each and every single day over the last 4 years while I've covered your Detroit Pistons for the Locked On Network. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances at Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Make sure you guys head to the description down below for the Substack and the Playback, where I have content coming to you guys all year round. Also, later on, we will discuss Tobias and break down his season review, and then we'll get into THA's season review later on as well. But we are going to start with the report that had the Pistons community in a frenzy over the weekend. It was all over the place. I saw this in literally every community possible. Pistons fan base discussing this. Multiple YouTube videos made about it, podcasts. Like, I saw everybody talking about this. A recent report from Marc Stein, who is his own individual NBA insider now. He doesn't work for ESPN any longer. He hasn't for a while, but he does a lot of his work, almost I think all of his work, over on his Substack. He's a very credible insider. I very much trust him. He's done a great job reporting on the NBA and giving us some leaks over the last. I've been subbed to his Substack now for I think 3 years. I think he's done a great job. He's very, very credible. But over this weekend, Marc Stein reported that the Detroit Pistons have some interest in a multiple big men this offseason, and the key trait about them is that they are stretch fives. Players Reid and Myles Turner. Now, Marc Stein wrote, quote, Detroit is known to covet a floor-spacing big man. Whether the Pistons have a tangible shot at acquiring either player, mind you, is far from clear, end quote, but the interest is real. What I want to talk about here is not even so much the players, Reid and Myles Turner. I don't think that is so much important, for me at least. Other people can take that angle. If you guys want to discuss that amongst yourselves, go right ahead. The only thing I'll say en route to leading into what I'm about to talk about is Nas can play the 4. I'm interested to see in the next team he plays for if they just put him at the 5 and have him play there more. But he can play the 4. He did it a lot in Minnesota. He is not just a pure 5. So you could theoretically see him sliding down to the 4 and playing there. Myles is a 5. Myles is not a 4. He cannot play the 4. He is a 5-man. That's just that he is a pure 5. There is no let's slide him down. There is no no, he's not doing that. He is a 5. The reason why I say that is my biggest takeaway here is about the Pistons' team building approach moving forward. I feel like this report, if it's true, which I feel like I'm going to take it as true as of right now. Whether it actually plays out or not, again, it's going to be hard for them to even do this, to get either of those guys anyways. But I'm going to take the report as true right now just to have this discussion. We'll see if it actually is. I take this report as getting a look at the Pistons front office psyche about their version of this team or how they want to build this team moving forward. That's how I'm looking at this. Because going back to what we just recorded about on Friday, which was a big talking point last week in the Pistons community, was the fit between Jalen Duran and Ausar Thompson. And I came out pretty strongly to say that those guys can play together. I pointed out all the numbers. I pointed out how they dominated their minutes in the regular season. They dominated their minutes in the postseason. I talked about how the duo of Ausar and Duran was the only positive net rating duo that featured Duran in the playoffs. I pointed out how the starting lineup dominated once Ausar Thompson came to the starting lineup after January 4th. I pointed out how the starting lineup dominated the playoffs. I pointed out all of those numbers, to suggest that nothing suggests that, or nothing backs up the point that they can't play together. Every single number you will find says that they can play together. And I maintain that stance. And I don't think the Pistons front office thinks they can't play together either. However, Could you still also, can you believe that, but also still make the argument that, yes, they can play together, but are they actually, is that the maximized lineup? Is that the maximized duo? Is that the pairing that maximizes both players, that maximizes Cade, that maximizes Ivy, that maximizes whoever other young player, Ron Holland, whatever? Is that the duo that maximizes everybody? Or do they just work together? You see, there's a difference between working together and reaching the ceiling, maximizing to the utmost potential. And I do think you could make the argument that while I think they can work together, and I think all the numbers suggest that, I also believe you can make the argument that they don't maximize each other. Because a lot of the Pistons' offense came from transition, from fast break, from their defense. And while I think, because especially with how the Knicks played Cade Cunningham defensively, that Duran and Ausar are uniquely equipped to handle that despite not being shooters. Yes, I broke that down in multiple film breakdowns. And I think that Duran and Ausar's passing and playmaking make it possible for them to play together. However, could this report be giving us a look into their thinking that if we put a stretch big next to Ausar, because it said stretch 5. It says they want to stretch big. In 2025, there is no such thing as stretch bigs at the 4 position. Okay? Like, all 4s are expected to shoot. Like, there is no more stretch 4s in 2025. That was a term back in 2015. When you say stretch big, you are talking about a 5 in 2025. When they say that, makes me think, okay, they must believe that if you put a stretch next to Ausar, that maximizes that unit offensively. It opens up the lane for Cade, Ausar, Ivy, whoever you want to put in there, Ryan, whatever. When you only have one non-shooter on the floor, it maximizes and opens up the floor offensively and gives them a different way to attack a team offensively that they haven't had just yet. So my mind went straight to, is Duran as safe as we think he is, if this report is to be true? So that's where I'm at with it. I'm really interested in this offseason to see what they decide to do, because this is, I mean, we've said this multiple times. We've said this multiple times in the podcast, and this is going to be something I say throughout the whole offseason. And I'm sure Keith Smith, who is going to be back on the podcast this week to break down everything cap space related, free agency related, all that kind of stuff. The Pistons are entering an offseason where they have to make decisions because of contract timelines. You have to, there is no, I'm not saying they have to panic, and they're not in panic mode yet, but you are now approaching decision time. Duran's up for an extension. Ivy's up for an extension. This is the first year Cade's extension now kicks in with the All-NBA input into it. Next offseason, you have Ausar. And then you have Ron. So, and with, again, Cade's contract jumped quite a bit, which is, like, I'm not going to say, I don't think anyone should complain about it. That means he's reaching his potential. But his contract jumped quite a bit. And you need to be careful. You need to be, not careful, precise with how you handled the contracts and the cap space around him. So this is where you start making decisions. I'm not saying they make the decision, move on from any of these guys. I'm not saying that. They could very well bring back everybody and re-sign everybody. That could be the decision they make. But my point is that this is where they do have to start looking at all avenues and start thinking about every possibility, because the contracts are forcing you to. In the previous years, when guys are in year 1, year 2 of rookie contracts, year 3, you don't have a franchise guy, you're not having success, there's no real urgency to have to, make a decision unless you want to save your job, basically. But once Cade gets this contract, you make the playoffs, you have success. Now he's reaching another level of his contract. Now 2 other guys of the young core have their rookie extension coming up. Then another guy is a year later. Now you have to start thinking about your team building moving forward. So this is where my mind went straight to. It didn't go to Nas and Myles, who are both really good players. Nas, again, like I said, I think he can play the 4. He doesn't have to be at the 5. Myles does have to. But my mind didn't go to the individual players. My mind went to, if this report is true, they must believe that a stretch 5 is what's best for this team in the long haul to reach their ceiling with Cade and Ausar in the lineup. That's what my mind went to, is that this team needs more spacing. This team needs, they in order to reach their peak, they can't play with 2 non-shooters on the floor. That's at least where I'm at. That's where I think this report is taking me. That's where my mind's at, and that's where I'm thinking moving forward. That's what I'm thinking about this. That's what I'm going to be watching for, to see if the Pistons go get a stretch 5. Are they actually going to try to trade for one? And if they do, that makes me look at the Pistons center room and saying, okay, which one of Stu or Duran is gone then? if they do go that route, because you can't have all three of them. If they're all 3 5s, you can't have all three of them. So if this report is true and they go out and do that, which one of these bigs are the ones that they want to move on from? Like, what is it? And again, maybe this report isn't true. And again, it's going to be hard for the Pistons to even get either of these guys. They only have, even if they release all the cap holds, because of Cade's jump in the All-NBA contract, I believe they're sitting around $20 million of cap space at the most they could even create. So it would have to be some kind of sign and trade for either of these guys, I believe. And again, that's my understanding. We'll have Keith Smith confirm that later on this week, but pretty sure that's the case. It's going to be hard to even do it. So maybe it doesn't come to fruition anyways. But I do feel like if the report is true, you're getting at least a little bit of a psyche into what this front office thinks about this team and the team building when they eventually hit their peak moving forward. So let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. Where did your mind go when these reports surfaced? Again, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. Coming up, we'll review Tobias Harris's season and whether he was worth the contract the Detroit Pistons gave him this past offseason that a lot of people criticized. We'll talk about that coming up. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. I trust DoorDash, I love it, but my goodness, I was using it a ton. Now I budget smarter and save more. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDINNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDINNBA for half off your first year with Monarch Money. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. We are less than 200 subs away from 11,000 subscribers. Let's get there by the end of this offseason. I really would appreciate it. Also, leave us a 5-star review. Truly, all those rankings is great. All the ratings, it really, really does support the podcast. So if you haven't, please leave a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. But let's go ahead and get into this Tobias Harris season review. Actually, I'm going to pause real quick because I just got a report that suggested something about Frank Ragnow. I want to know what's going on. I know there was a lot of... Whoa, what? Bro, Frank Ragnow just retired? Bro, what? I know this is Locked On Pistons, this isn't Locked On Lions, but dude, they just lost, like, that's huge, bro. What? I thought he was missing camp or OTAs because of contract. Bro, he was one of their best, oh my goodness. Bro, he's only 29 too, like, what? All right, we got to get back to Pistons related stuff. That sucks, man. What are they going to do? Oh my God, man. All right, anyways, let's get back to the Pistons. Sorry, guys. Anyone who's not a Lions fan, I'm sorry. But anyone who's also a Lions fan understands why this is such a big deal. Man. Anyways, all right, let's get into Tobias Harris' season review. So I'll go ahead and let you guys know right off the top. I have Tobias graded season as like a B+, close to an A-. I thought he absolutely was worth the contract this past offseason, which was the first question that needs to be answered. Was he worth the contract the Pistons gave him this past offseason? I would say 100%. Off the court, on the court, he was fantastic. I've heard from numerous people, everyone's heard from the players and pressers, but I've heard from numerous people that this dude as a leader was probably one of the best, it might be the best leader over the last 5+ years for the Detroit Pistons. He was loved, universally loved by everybody in the organization on and off the court. He was fantastic, and they don't do what they did this year without his leadership on the floor, steadying them emotionally, and helping them grow as not just players, but individuals in the locker room. He was huge for them. That's first. We have to start there. Next, I want to talk about a specific part of his game, because I think this really tells the story of Tobias Harris' season and what matters and how he impacted this season. So, earlier we briefly touched on it. The Pistons' half-court offense was not great this past year. It was not very good. Their offense came from fast breaks, turnovers, transition offense, all that stuff. Their half-court offense struggled. And the Pistons got Tobias because he was a 4 that could space the floor and attack closeouts, etc., all that kind of stuff. Well, it wasn't the three-point shooting that really popped for the Pistons when it came to Tobias Harris. It was another area of his game that really kept this half-court, was one of the huge reasons why this half-court offense wasn't one of the worst in the entire NBA. And it was his ability to dominate mismatches in the post. He was exceptional in the post, attacking mismatches, and had a career year, and we'll get into the numbers to break down just how great he was at this. So on the season, according to Cleaning the Glass, Tobias Harris in the short mid-range area was in the 79th percentile, shot 49% on short mid-ranges, but trust me, it gets even better. Again, 79th percentile. He was electric in this area. This is the area from 4 to 14 feet. So not long mid-ranges, but right underneath the free throw line. The block extended right around the dot area, a little bit farther than that. The area of the mid-range you'd like guys to be taking shots from if they were to get to the mid-range. The long two, Josh Smith stuff, no, you don't want none of that at all. But in the short mid-range, he was great. Shot 49%. Another area of his game, at the rim, shot the best of his career. 74% at the rim, 92nd percentile this year at the rim for Tobias Harris. Majority of this comes from him getting switches, the Pistons giving the ball against mismatches, and him attacking mismatches all season long, whether it turned into a post fadeaway, a pull-up midi, or attacking them and getting to the rim. That's where all of those numbers really come from. Now, I want to dive even further into these numbers to give you guys a better idea of how great he really was this year. According to NBA PM, he was in the 64th percentile on post-ups this year, 161 possessions that they've tracked, scoring 1.04 points per possession. Again, 64th percentile. But again, like I said, it gets even better. Because to start the year, which I wrote about over at the Substack on March 11th, which you guys definitely should check out. You guys would have known about this already if you haven't already. Tobias really struggled the first 2 months of the season. The first 2 months of the season, Tobias was in the 20th percentile in post-ups. Wasn't great. Was not very great. But if you look at his numbers since January 1st, where he really flipped the switch, that's where the numbers really come through for you. Remember how I told you guys he shot 49% on short mid-ranges and was in the 79th percentile on short mid-ranges? Well, if you go since January 1st, which is a 43-game sample size, he jumped from 49% to 54% on these short mid-ranges. Over 50%, guys, on mid-ranges. That's exceptional. 54% on short middies. And in the 93rd percentile on short mid-ranges. Again, this is relative to position. He jumped from the 79th percentile to 93rd percentile. And by the way, when I say relative to position, the Clean the Glass has him as a wing forward. So it's all the wings forward. They're not comparing him to a guard, not comparing him to a center, whatever. It's relative to his position. So he jumped to the 93rd percentile. And then even at the rim, he got a lot better. He jumped to the 93rd percentile, which is just not jumped. It went up 1 percentile. And he shot 76% at the rim rather than 74%. That's on the year. On the year is what he shot beforehand. The 49% from short mid-range, 74% at the rim. He shot 54% short mid-range and 76% at the rim just since January 1st. He jumped to a whole nother level, which was a huge reason why. There was multiple reasons why the Pistons had such a success once that starting lineup changed with Ausar Thompson coming in. Ausar, I think, is the leading reason. The defense completely changed. But Tobias improving his play within the half-court offense and dominating these mismatches in the post was another big reason. It felt like every single time a team switched a guard onto him or a smaller wing, it was automatic. It felt like it was automatic every single time. Tobias has had the best finishing season of his career. This is the best finishing season of his career at the rim. His previous best was in 2013 at 69% at the rim. That 54% he shot from short mid-range would be a career best by 4%. He had a fantastic year from within the arc. From within the free throw line, That was clearly where he loved to get to. That was his favorite spots. And he dominated. He dominated those spots. Just to give you guys an idea of that being his favorite spots. 36% of his shots came on short mid-ranges. Just that area, 36%. It was the highest percent of his shots that came from any other area. At the rim, 25%. So just those two areas took up what? 61% of his shots? He lived in that area. And he was great. We talked about the on-off, the Pistons. He had the largest on-off of any Piston this season. They dominated his minutes, struggled mightily without him on the floor during the regular season. His defense in the playoffs on Cat was fantastic. We already talked about that on an episode. I broke it down in multiple film breakdowns throughout the playoffs. His defense on Cat was fantastic. But just keeping it to this season, B-plus season, maybe even an A season, he was great. The one area that he didn't play the best at, and I'm not going to say for guys that are like 32 years old, like him, THJ, Malik, or not Malik, Malik's a little bit younger, that they need to get better at this. They are who they are basically now at this point. He had a down year shooting-wise from beyond the arc. He never really came around as a three-point shooter. He started to get a little better, but he never really came around. He came around inside the three-point line, but outside the three-point line, he never really came around how you'd like him to be. During his time in Philadelphia, this is where he shot on non-corner threes, 35, 38, 36, 38. All of that was in the 65 percentile or higher. On corner threes, he shot 44, 45, 41, 41% on corner threes. That's what I expected him to be around. He was not that. On corner threes, he was at 38%. That was his worst percent since his first season with Detroit in 2016. On non-corner threes, he shot 31%, which again is his worst percent since why do I keep saying since 2018 with the Clippers. So if there was one area of his game that he just he never came around to, it was his three-point shooting. Again, it got better as the season went on, but he was never that I guess for lack of a better word, sniper that you'd like him to be. But Tobias was never this high-volume three-point shooter anyways. All of it was on lower volume. He was never shooting 6, 7 threes a game anyways. So at the end of the day, he didn't shoot enough threes for the variance to really be impacted, I would say. Like whether he shot 35% or 37%, I'm not sure how much of a difference it swings because he just didn't shoot a lot of them anyways. The fact that the shots that he did take a lot of, which was, again, the short mid-range, the post-ups, and at the rim, were so great, especially as the season went on, was way more impactful of whether, instead of shooting 35% or 37% from three. Like, that was way more impactful. So I thought Tobias was great this year, and I think he is the best veteran the Pistons have had, maybe in my time watching the Pistons since I was a kid. So let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. What grade would you give Tobias Harris this season? And do you think he was worth the contract the Pistons gave him this past offseason? Let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. Coming up, we'll break down THJ's season review. And was he worth the trade the Pistons made this past offseason, including Quentin Grimes? We'll talk about that coming up. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Check out the description down below for the Substack and for the Playback. Have content coming to you guys. Again, if you're not subscribed over on the Substack, you're missing some really, really good content and some really deep and insightful breakdowns, if I have to say so myself. So make sure you guys go check that out and sub over there. Actually, I think we're at 500 plus subs over there right now, so I appreciate all the support. So if you haven't checked it out, you definitely should. But let's get into Tim Hardaway Jr. season. I think Tim Hardaway Jr. had a very up and down season for the Pistons. Very up and down. At times, he was scorching hot. And multiple times, he won the Pistons a game. I think at least 3 or 4 games he won the Pistons this year because he went unconscious for like an 8-minute stretch and hit like 5, 6 threes. He even had a stretch in one of the playoff games. We hit 6 of 6 threes in the first half. They lost that game. You have to win that one. But they lost that one. He did come through for that stretch, though. But THJ, if the best way to describe THJ this season, I would say is up and down. Because on the year, he averaged 11 points a game. But he shot, if my computer will stop freezing on me, he shot 36.8% from deep, which was higher than last year, but also on lower volume. You probably would have liked to see him be closer to the 38-39% he shot with Dallas. But 36, around 37% isn't bad. It's not, I wouldn't sit there and say it's like, Kyle Korver, Malik Beasley-esque, you feel me? But it was good. He was good. And for what it's worth, he was in the starting lineup that the Pistons utilized for more than half the season, that thrived, that really took the jump. He was in that starting lineup. He contributed to some of that. And before we get into the numbers of THJ's season, I think where I stand with THJ, before we really break it all down, is he served his role. He did exactly what I would say he was expected to do. Come in, shoot threes, be a good veteran in the locker room, on the floor. And for that game I was courtside at, I said this after that game, THJ was probably the most talkative veteran on the court when it came to talking with his teammates, talking on defense, communicating. He talked the entire game, and I'm sure they desperately appreciated that, and it was pretty impactful on the floor for sure. So I think he did exactly what you wanted from him. Don't think he did more. Don't think he really did less. I think he met exactly what was his expectations. So if you just dive a little further into the numbers, non-corner threes, he shot 36%. This was a little bit higher up than his previous year with Dallas, but that peak year he had with Dallas when he was really balling out, averaged 14 points a game 2 years ago, he shot 39%. He has years when he shot 40% on non-corner threes. So it's not his career best. It was, right in the middle there. So it was an okay season. It was in the 64th percentile. On corner threes, he actually went down from last year, shot 38% on corner threes. Previous year, he shot 40%. So that wasn't great. But it was fine. It was like okay. Both of these numbers are like okay. Corner threes is around average. Non-corner threes, he was above average. I actually thought the area of his game that was pretty impressive to me, that I thought kind of helped the Pistons half-court offense a bit, was his ability to drive closeouts. His quick trigger and his utmost confidence in himself on shooting threes, whether he's shooting 2 of 9 or whether he's shooting 6 of 6, the defenses are guarding him the same because of his quick trigger and because of how much confidence he has and because of of how the league respects him as a shooter and because the defenses know that he can get hot in a hurry. They close out hard on him. And I didn't know that he had this ability to really close closeouts like he did, or drive closeouts is what I should say. But this year he shot 68% at the rim, 70th percentile. It's the highest he shot at the rim since 2020. A lot of those shots came from him attacking a closeout and then getting all the way to the rim and getting an open layup for himself. There was quite a few times where he would pump fake, get to the short mid-range, and pulled up. He shot shot 42% on short mid-ranges in the 56th percentile. That's the highest he's been at, again, since 2020. So I was kind of impressed by that aspect of his game. Did not know that he had that in him, but he did, and that was noticeable and a sight to see. Defensively, though, obviously, I thought JB got the most out of these guys, the most out of these veterans defensively, but he was still, he's never going to be a plus, and he is who he is at this point of his career. He wasn't great on that end. He got taken advantage of at times, especially in the playoffs. They really targeted him and Malik, which was, like I said, he's a veteran. He's a role player. He has his weaknesses. He has his strengths. You take it, you take what you get with him. But for the most part, I think THJ did exactly what you expected of him this year. And I would grade his season as like a B-, C+, B-. I thought he was fine this year. Was he worth the trade? You see what Quentin Grimes is doing. He's going ballistic. He might get a really good contract this offseason. But from what I understood, and I told you guys this at the time, from what I understood, Quentin Grimes did not want to be here. So that had a lot to do with the trade. He just did not want to play in Detroit, so they moved him. So was it equal value? Did THJ play up to Quentin Grimes' value? No. Quentin Grimes ended up balling out for Philly. Yes, he did do that. But I don't really like using that trade or comparing the two because, again, Quentin Grimes didn't want to be here. So I like to compare it more so to, did THJ do his job? Did he meet expectations? And did he contribute to this team turning this franchise around? And I think across the board, the answers are yes, yes, and yes. Whether they bring him back next season, I'm not quite sure. I probably would lean towards using trying to trade him, trying to sign and trade him, trying to upgrade from his spot. That's how I would look at it. That's what I would try to do. But if he comes back as a backup, is that the worst thing in the world? No, I don't think that's bad. I think you could upgrade. But I thought THA, for the most part, did his job this year, met expectations, and I wouldn't be just furious if he came back. Although I do think it probably would be better to upgrade from his position. But I thought THA, to be honest, he was a lot more of a... How should I say? I had a lot more fun watching him than I thought I would. Like, I enjoyed watching him a lot more than I thought. When they first acquired him, I did not think I was going to enjoy watching him play at all. I thought that it was going to be tough. I thought he wasn't going to play well. I wasn't really happy for it. And while he definitely had some times, quite a few times, where his shot selection really drove me crazy and his defense drove me crazy at times, he had a lot of moments where it was like, oh my God, this dude can't miss. He really came through right there. Like, I had a lot more fun than I thought watching him this year. And I think that can be viewed as probably the best compliment here. But let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil, how you guys felt about THJ's season this year. Again, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free to available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. And until next time, peace out, everybody.